I have a name here that is very famous here at Sherm. The #1 rated speaker for 15 years, Steve Gilliland. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And I would love to talk to you about the impact on people.
Well, thank you so much for having me first and foremost. And it's an honor. Every time I come to Sherm, it's an honor because, again, it's all about people, and our great, most appreciable asset is people. So it's an honor to know that that carries on and goes back into the workplace. So,
yeah, and I was so impressed about your impact on people because your session was full, was packed. There were people sitting on the floor. We were all connected to you. So my first question is, how do you think we can manage ourselves to be more impactful in our work environment and in our personal lives?
Great question. First and foremost for me, I think it's always about just being yourself. I think you have to be who you are. And the introduction you heard this morning when I was introduced in front of, a couple of thousand people was, I believe that if you're listening, you're laughing, and the laughing turns into the listening piece, and then the listening turns into the learning piece. So if you're laughing, you're listening. If you're listening, you're learning. So all those things come together. So for me, the impact I have as a speaker at a conference like this is to first and foremost get you engaged so that you are listening. And the way I do that is I use a lot of humor. We got room number 3. We walked in. There was coffee in the coffee pot. My wife said, "That's disgusting." And I said, "Oh my God, they made us coffee." Because I think sometimes my personality, and when you ask me the question about impacting people, my thing is I'm just who I am. And I think sometimes we're told to be a certain thing in a certain way, and my personality is more of, this is who I am. I'm very respectful of people, but I'm also a person that likes to, when I see a person, doesn't matter if I'm going up the escalator, doesn't matter if I'm in the elevator, doesn't matter where I'm at, you're going to get a hi from me, and you're going to get a smile from me. And I think that sometimes is what we fail to realize is the person that we're interchanging with and crossing paths with, we have no idea the day they're having. We don't know what their morning was. We don't know what they've encountered at home and what they maybe are going to go through at work. So I just think sometimes we don't realize that in that single moment that you interact with somebody, you can actually change the trajectory of what that day might be for them.
The metric for success are so sometimes heavy, and so we have to work ourselves to death to have success. And I think our values changed after the pandemic, during the pandemic. And what do you think about that?
Well, you bring up a great point, and I think I've lived my life like this. My children, the people that work with me and our organization, one of the things I tell them is, if you wake up in the morning and you love what you do, you always know why you do what you do, understand the reason why you do what you do, and you enjoy doing it, you're a success. I think too much of it is equated with, the material things of the world. Too many times we measure success on what it is that we have, where we live, what we drive. That's not success. Success is who you are, and waking up in the morning and enjoying what it is that you do, but how you influence people and how you do that in a positive way. There's so many times, and I'll say this again, there's so many times that we have a chance to interact with someone and we miss that opportunity. And, I look at some of the orientation that companies do, and I tell people, understand what it is, the reason why you do what you do. And with the pandemic, one of the things I was preaching is we got stuck. You have to keep moving forward. And in order to keep moving forward, you have to reconnect with your why. You reconnect with why you do what you do. For me as a speaker, there can be 2,000 people in an audience, but there might be that one person that needed to hear what I said in that singular moment that put them on the path again and they got moving forward.
And that's enough, right? One person in 2,000, that's good enough.
That's absolutely correct. And I think that's the thing is, you don't know who needs what. So in the course of a 60-minute presentation, one person gets this out of it, another person gets this out of it. You don't know who is listening, but it's when you say that one thing that absolutely defines that moment for them. And that's why I do it.
Can you name some people that influenced you?
Well, my mom is number one on my list, and I mentioned that this morning. She passed away last September. but great influence in my life. I have a former secretary that influenced my life. And the irony of this is the third person on my list is another woman, and that is my wife. So when you look at my list, but here's the one that, and I'm going to say this tomorrow, I had a sixth grade teacher. If I listed 5 people who made the biggest difference in my life, a sixth grade teacher, if he would not have been a part of my life, I don't think I'd be sitting here today talking to you. First of all, I'll just say tomorrow will center around 3 words: purpose, passion, and pride. Purpose is what drives us. Passion fuels us, and pride defines us. That's the 3 words that I'll center around tomorrow. And then I'll ask people to think about the 5 people in their own life that made the biggest difference in their life.
Your perspective is a very good one, that you can look at things with humor. We can learn from the audience, having a good time.
Oh, absolutely. Right? In terms of humor, you take real life situations. People will say to me, I said, no, I don't tell jokes. I said, my humor is real life. My humor is my family. My humor is me. My humor is the things that we encounter every day, whether it's in a restaurant, a hotel, an airport, at home, a neighbor. It's just things that happen, and I try to translate that. So, and in the workplace. When this morning when I said, how many of you have ever worked around that person that you don't even have to see them? You just go to work and just their car upsets you, because they're connected to it. And people just laughed. And more than one came to me and said, oh my gosh, I started to think about this particular person I work with. So you kind of make it real for them so that it's not something like, there's no magic formula. There's no acronym. There's no 7-step process to it. It really is just who you are and how you carry your life and impact others. I think as a speaker, I try to connect to them on all levels. And I think I really understand where they're at as human resource professionals, the impact that they have. And you heard me say this morning, if they're allowed to have it. Because sometimes, their managers, they're trying to create this culture of performance, and then all of a sudden, they don't have quite the freedom they need sometimes to be able to do that, because somebody higher up says, oh, no, we can't do that. And I talked a little bit about recruitment and retention, so that was very important as well.
Yeah, one tip for retention.
One tip for retention is, I told this morning about, and I'll put it in very simple, people do not leave bad companies. People leave bad bosses. And the retention factor is based on the culture that you create, that people want to actually be there, and they want to stay there. And when you can create a culture where they enjoy being there, they want to stay there, and they like who they report to, you're going to retain them as employees.
I was wondering here, am I in the list of someone's 5 people that influenced them? Do you think for us to start thinking about that goal, what should we do in daily basis?
I think you may have answered it. I think you have to be conscious of the fact that you do influence people. And I'm going to give you a great example. Here in the United States, I spoke at a large school district, and I spoke in front of the teachers and all the administration and staff. And one of the things I challenged them to do is I said, think about 5 people that made the biggest difference in your life. Then, at the end of the keynote presentation, I then said to them, how many of you, as a teacher, as an administrator, how many of you will be on somebody's list of 5? The next year I went back. They invited me back a second time. When I got there, the names of their schools were on the front of their T-shirts. On the back, it said, make someone's list. So they were very conscious of the fact that we want our teachers, we want our principals, we want our administrators, we want somebody to make that list. Because you think of what I said earlier. I'm not ashamed to say, I'm 63 years old, and I'm telling you about a teacher in 6th grade that made my list of 5 people that made the biggest difference in my life. And I'm going to say it again, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for that 6th grade teacher. That's the power of influence, and that's the impact we can have in someone's life.
And in times of so much technology, so much influencers, what do you think about the technology and the role of technology in this area of influencing and impacting people?
Well, it's very powerful. I will not deny that. I think, social media, I think technology has created a platform to influence. But you again, if those that don't know me, when they finally find out who I am, they begin to realize that the influence that I have, even in social media, it's all positive. It's not for reaction. It's not to, for me, it's kind of like I'd rather reach 1,000 people and make a difference in their life by saying something that puts a smile on their face, a smile on their heart, versus maybe reaching 10 times that audience, but having it, I don't know, controversial or reactive. So for my personality is, I think influence is very powerful. I think a lot of it is very, very positive, but I'm only talking about me. For me, it's got to be inspirational, motivational, or humorous. And for me, I like to stay, the old saying here in the U.S., that's my lane. It's like on the highway, that's my lane. I want to stay in that lane. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people they influence. It's just, for me, it goes back to the elevator. In a single day, in a single hotel, in a single moment, on a single elevator, you can change the trajectory of one person's life, which that person could go on. So I want you to think about my 6th grade teacher. If it wouldn't have been for him, I wouldn't do what I do. I've written 11 books. He has influenced me in such a way that he plays a role in all of that. That's that single moment, single hotel, single elevator, single person. That's answering your question. The power of influencers, it can be one person, it can be 1 million people. But the one person with the right ripple can impact hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people.
About your book, if people want to know more about your work.
It's called Making a Difference. And, for those in Brazil, if you go to Amazon and you just put in my name. The other thing that I would encourage those that are watching this is to go to YouTube. You have the internet, just go to YouTube, and that's kind of the fun thing, is then they get a chance to see me on stage. They get a chance to see me. I have a series called Motivation Bites. They can watch a 4 to 5 minute, and I call them Motivation Bites just for that reason. It's just a small snippet, a small bite, so they can go there. And again, I do that so that people that, get introduced to me through you, again, you influenced them through me, and then the rest is history. And thank you for this. It's an honor to be here at SHRM. It's an honor to be sitting here with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's go and have more fun at SHRM 22.